hope like a bad check. So I was on the coast of Massachusetts last weekend, and I was down near Newburyport, and I found myself wandering around a wildlife refuge down there in the late afternoon. The setting sun was lighting up the dunes all pink, and I was having one of those major, oh wow, nature moments. And I thought I was the only person out there, being early January, but I happened to run into, and eventually found myself walking and chatting with, a guy named Luke. He's about my age, he's a writer and an avid outdoorsman, and he grew up in that area. He was home visiting his parents before completing plans to buy a boat and literally sail off into the sunset. It was one of those moments when strangers encounter each other, and for whatever reason, they end up having a much more intimate conversation than you might have with someone that you know well and see every day. Now, Luke is a self-identified curmudgeon, and he kept betraying, however, an incredibly soft spot for the world around us. He'd point out the way the light played on the dried up marsh grass, or he'd get utterly caught up in the sight of a rabbit running across our path. At one point, as we were navigating an icy boardwalk, he reached out and grabbed my arm. I thought he meant to warn me off a slippery patch, but it was actually because he just caught sight of an entire flock of robins in a tree right next to us. He said, "God, those are spring birds. What are they doing here now?" And of course, my first thought, even though I'm not a bird expert, was, well, climate change. I didn't say it, though, because I didn't want to get into that conversation right at that moment. Now, the reason why Luke is prepared to buy a boat and sail off into the sunset is because he doesn't really want to have much to do with the rest of humanity anymore. In fact, I was kind of honored that he was bothering to talk to me at all. Although I realize most people, even misanthropists, see me as kind of friendly and harmless. It's sort of a gift. But the reason he's a curmudgeon, and he admitted as much himself, is that actually he's a great big sweetie. He cries at chick flicks, and he allows himself to be stunned by things like the magical interplay of light on water. He's got a tender, tender heart, and he can't really bear much more of the disappointments that life seems to endlessly drop at his door. And we're not talking about the big catastrophic disappointments of the woefully unlucky, just the daily heartbreaks brought to our soul's threshold by the inherent imperfections of being alive. Hence my not wanting to get into the climate conversation. I didn't want Luke skipping the boat and just heading for the open sea all by himself. You know, Grist recently published a story titled, "If You're Not Alarmed About Climate Change, You Aren't Paying Attention." And then they went into a step-by-step account of the unimaginable disaster which we seem to be headed towards, which I am not going to recount right now because that's not how I want to start this day either. Plus, you all know it. You're all pros at this. You all probably saw Australia's revised temperature map with a whole new color for hot, because it's getting toastier down there than it's ever been before, and they need a whole new shade of purple just to be able to talk about it. I bet I am not the only person in this room who's seen some version of robins in January. Those maps, those robins, the ticks that Jim mentioned, New York City taking it on the chin, you all know what it means. We are in it. Climate change is real, and it's happening now, and there is a global clock ticking louder than it's ever ticked before. The important part, though, is that I have no doubt you are all in love with the world as much as Luke is. But unlike Luke, you haven't decided to check out. You haven't decided to sell everything and vanish into the insulation and isolation of the lonely sea and sky. You don't blame the rest of humanity for our troubles so thoroughly that you refuse to have anything more to do with anyone ever again. You're here. You've given up probably yet another Saturday, when you could be out playing or working in your house or reading a good book, to come together for a very specific, slightly technical, not terribly sexy, but highly significant cause. You're here. Plus, I think you all understand, although I'm going to belabor the point a little bit more, that what you're gathered here to do isn't ultimately about spending a year weatherizing the homes in your communities. I mean, yes, it's important to make people comfy and help them spend less money and build green jobs and burn far fewer fossil fuels. That, of course, is vital. It's exactly the kind of chipping away at things work that we all have to do to address the issues that are unavoidably facing us. But what you are really here to do is to model for each other and everyone you'll meet during this year of thermal efficiency what compassion in action looks like. You're modeling true world tending and world mending. You're modeling what giving, supportive leadership looks like. You're showing with your time and your hands and your commitment to this challenge that this is a beautiful world, it is utterly worth fighting for, and that the best way to do that is to take care of the people immediately around you. Take care of the people that you can touch just by walking out your door. You are saying to everyone here today and to every person you meet this year that you're not going to despair or disappear. You are going to do stuff that matters. Now, the other thing that happened to me last weekend was I stayed in a B&B. It was one of your classic New England flowered wallpaper and shaker chair kind of places. And when it came down to breakfast in the morning, there were several other women who were sitting there at the communal table, and we ended up getting into another of those intimacy of strangers kind of conversations. We were sharing the stories of our lives and speaking to each other from our hearts and from our passions. And it was a remarkable, magical moment of fellowship, or sistership. But as we were on our third cup of tea, my brother texted me. And I had to text him back because I was going to visit him and his family, and we were making plans that involved small children. And so, of course, that necessitates the coordinated precision of a small military invasion. Sadly, when I apologized momentarily to these women and picked up my phone to respond, it completely broke the magic circle. Everyone else grabbed their phones, shoved their chairs back, and off we went into our own personal lives. No chance to thank each other for being so fully present at that table. No chance, even, to say goodbye. Now, I tell you this because I hope today can be something like that timeless breakfast moment for all of you. You're all here because you're participating in an important statewide event, and I hope that this training can be something of a magic circle of sharing and commitment and information and support. I also hope that because you're all Vermonters, and you'll be working on this project for a year, even in competition with each other, that you don't have to break the magic circle. That you can keep supporting and encouraging each other and sharing tips and tricks and strategies. Now, you might say back to me, oh, Kathy, you forget this is first and foremost a competition, and the whole goal here is to be the town that wins. And sure, that's partly true. But I will tell you one more story. Last year, my friend Nick Lang over there and I launched a very fierce little intertown competition called Vermontivate. Vermontivate was all about getting people to engage in a wide variety of energy-conserving, green living behaviors, scoring points for their town, all with the goal of winning their community a giant ice cream party from Ben & Jerry's. And I will tell you, saving the world is one thing, but there is nothing which excites people more than free ice cream. I'm just saying. And we're currently ramping up for another bigger round of the game this spring. And because one objective of Vermontivate is to amplify all the great work that everyone around the state is already up to, one of the things we'll be doing is highlighting this competition. So hopefully, 4 or 5 months from now, if you're losing steam or you feel like you've run out of volunteers or easy-to-reach homeowners, we will be able to provide you with a whole bunch of shiny, energetic new participants. Anyway, one of the surprising things that happened during the 5 weeks that we ran the game last year was that all of the people playing Vermontivate, despite being from different towns and hotly competing for their own ice cream parties, spent most of their time on the game's website talking to and supporting each other. They were excited to watch each other learn new skills. They loved giving each other advice. They congratulated each other when someone did something particularly novel or clever or adventurous. We had players who became self-appointed ambassadors. And Whenever someone new signed up, no matter what town they were from, these mavens of goodwill would contact the newbie, welcome them to the game, and offer to answer any questions they had. We didn't ask them to do that. They just did. Because they loved the fact that everything they were all doing, they were ultimately doing with and for each other. They all understood that, game or no, we are all in the same boat, and we will succeed or fail as one. So you'll be creating a magic circle today. Try not to break it. You'll have a magic circle with your team. Treat it with care. And remember to expand it as often as possible. Include everyone, including your fiercest competitors, or the one that's toughest for me, even the annoying people. Because the truth is they matter to the larger cause just as much as anyone else does. Now, you might ask me, as a game designer myself, do I have any other tips or tricks about how you might go about winning this competition? And, of course, saving the world. And I do. But it doesn't come from me. It comes in the form of a poem, no less, from one of my all-time favorite authors, Barbara Kingsolver. She wrote a poem called Hope, an Owner's Manual. Look, you might as well know. This thing is going to take endless repair. Rubber bands, crazy glue, tapioca, the square of the hypotenuse, 19th century novels, heartstrings, sunrise, all of these are useful. Also, feathers. To keep it humming, sometimes you have to stand on an incline where everything looks possible. On the line you drew yourself. Or in the grocery line, making faces at a toddler secretly over his mother's shoulder. You might have to pop the clutch and run past all the evidence, past everyone who is laughing or praying for you. Definitely, you don't want to go directly to jail, but still, here you go, passing time, passing strange. Don't pass this up. In the worst of times, you will have to pass it off. Park it and fly by the seat of your pants. With nothing in the bank, you'll still want to take the express. Tiptoe past the dogs of the apocalypse that are sleeping in the shade of your future. I love that line. I'm going to say that again. Tiptoe past the dogs of the apocalypse that are sleeping in the shade of your future. Pay at the window. Pass your hope like a bad check. You might still just have enough time to make a deposit. Actually, I have one more little quote from you. This one is from Reinhold Niebuhr, an American theologian who also happens to be known for having authored the Serenity Prayer, beloved of 12-steppers everywhere. Nothing that is worth doing can be achieved in a lifetime. Therefore, we must be saved by hope. Nothing which is true or beautiful or good makes complete sense in any immediate context of history. Therefore, we must be saved by faith. Nothing we do, however virtuous, can be accomplished alone. Therefore, we must be saved by love. Okay, so good luck, good hunting, be careful out there, always wear clean underwear, don't forget to hold hands when you walk across the street, and let the games begin. Thank you.